We're live. We're on the air. We got Matt's slightly better looking twin brother over here, Gunnar. Welcome to the show. Welcome.
I didn't say it. You did. I did write it, though.
But you know what? Before we start the show, everybody watching, thumbs up, subscribe if it's your first time here. And if you're here only because of Gunnar and, you know, not because of me, we deserve a good intro. It all starts now. Don't touch that dial.
Don't.
Bam. It's so Love Boat. It's so Love Boat. But thank you for being here. I'm so happy you're here. And we're talking a little bit, and I had a little personal discussion with you. But the big question is, in the photo, I was talking to you about who's who, which brother is who. And in the chat, if you guys can guess who's who, I want to know right here in this picture, which is the real Gunnar Nelson right here in this picture? Now, you were saying about a story about this picture with your dad.
Well,
right
okay,
here.
yeah. The photo of our father, obviously, we're superimposed over him, but that is the cover of his garden party record. That's his photo. And we figured out after the fact, it was quite by accident, that the photos that Matthew and I took, we're all at the same age. Wow. So when we took that photo, our dad was 33, and we were 33 when we took that picture too.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's really cool, man.
So great that picture. Is proof. That is proof of how much better looking our father was than we were. All right there in one snapshot.
You know, and we're going to show you Dad's vinyl collection. There's going to be a lot of great stuff. So everybody, we're going to get personal with Gunnar. We're going to talk, have a good time. I got to tell you something. I was listening to Garden Party, and if you really, especially the first track, if you listen to the vocals and the harmony, I don't know who's who singing or the vocals of you and your brother, but I could hear the whole family vocal. Like you guys, there's a register in there. I was like, because it's pretty rocking. The first tune, I'm like, your dad, it's not the Ricky from the 50s. He's getting more that first.
Well, he was kind of full of piss and vinegar at the time. He made the Garden Party record at a time in his life when the industry, if not the world, had completely considered him yesterday's news. They'd moved on. He had basically two major chapters to his career. The first one was when he was co-pioneering rock and roll in general. He was the guy that was the right guy at the right time to help smuggle rock and roll into mainstream American living rooms at a critical time in its history. At the time, it was kind of a niche art form. It was considered race music, and having Ricky Nelson, who America had grown up with up until that point, be the guy to take the stand and go, I'm a rocker and this is what I'm doing. Ozzie and Harriet, our grandparents, got a ton of hate mail, and the network threatened to cancel them and all that stuff. But it fell on deaf ears because Grandpa and Grandma actually met when our grandfather had a big band. He was a heartthrob in his day and had a #1 song of his own in 1935 called And Then Some. And so when, our dad went to him, and there's a whole story behind how our dad started singing and stuff. But, when he started singing on the show, any kind of pushback he got or any attempts back then, cancel culture has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And they tried that, but, Oz and Harriet were really tough. And there was this one episode where, our dad said to his parents, hey, what do you think about this whole rock and roll thing? And she was really cool because she took a stand as America's mother and said, you know what, we all had our own music in our own day. And this is just teenagers expressing their enthusiasm, and I'm not going to knock it. And that was given just a slight, subtle nod that, hey, man, this is pretty cool. It's important to note that in that particular day, people said that at that time, and we're talking 55 through 60, Elvis turned off a lot of parents and Ricky didn't. And Pat Boone turned off a lot of kids and Ricky didn't. So he was that guy, and back then the girls, man, you were either an Elvis fan or a Ricky fan. It was pretty polarized, and there was only one guy to ever give Elvis any kind of a run for his money. There were only two artists, two rockers in the 50s to have #1 albums, only two. And that was Elvis and Ricky. And they were just fighting through the charts or fighting for chart positions through their careers. They were good friends, but there was always that polite little respectful rivalry going on between the whole Memphis Sun Records thing.
Yeah.
And that California kid that was hanging out with Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent and doing the California sound, and they were equally as vibrant and all that. But when our dad did Garden Party, the singer-songwriter era had happened. The Beatles had invaded America. And in the early days of rock and roll, with some notable exceptions, most of the artists had professional songwriters writing songs for them, and they were translating them. Like Elvis never wrote a song at that time, but the Beatles came in, changed absolutely everything. And it was around 65, 66 when our dad was he was up in the Hollywood Hills. He had a bunch of luminaries always hanging out at the house with him and stuff. A lot of guys actually got their start watching our dad a decade earlier on television and got inspired to pick up a guitar. And that particular day, he was having a conversation with Bob Dylan, and Dylan challenged him to be a songwriter. He said, have you ever written songs? Because the kids nowadays, they expect artists to write their own music. And he said, I never really tried it. He said, well, give it a shot, man. You don't have anything to lose. People think you're over.
Yeah.
And so our dad did it. And fortunately, he made enough money from the show to where he could come from inspiration and not desperation. He set some time aside. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet had just been canceled, and he could have gone down the road of either acting in films. He had done Rio Bravo with John Wayne. He was a fine film actor.
Yeah.
But he just realized, that he made a decision that, there's a lot of critics never really agreed with in the future, that he wasn't a movie star that happened to sing, or a TV star that happened to sing. He actually always was a rocker who happened to be pretty comfortable in front of a camera. And he chose at that point that I'm a musician first. And he went back to the drawing board, and he had just come from, Dylan had done Nashville Skyline and all that. Our dad had just come out to Nashville and tried to make a couple of country records. And I live here now, and it's not changed a whole lot. There really honestly is a good old boys network here, and you're either on the inside of their power culture or you're not. And our dad came to town like Elvis did back in his day, and they basically didn't let him in. So he went back to California a little dejected, and that was a really, really good thing. Much like, Dylan picking up an electric guitar at Monterey. He basically envisioned the storytelling of country music, which he always loved, with the passion and energy and power of rock and roll. And that's when he traded James Burton, the legendary Telemaster, for Tom Brumley, his pedal steel player. And that's when the Stone Canyon Band was born. It was the first time anybody put a Marshall half stack right next to pedal steel guitar, and the whole California country sound was born. And that's what Matt and I grew up in. We grew up with our dad pushing our cribs aside and the Stone Canyon Band showing up in our pool house and rehearsing their band. And we thought forever that everybody was a songwriter and everybody could sing and everybody lived for music. And it was really kind of a cool time.
It's great to Debbie. Thank you for the super chat. I love listening to Gunnar over here, and thank you very much. I'll pop it up, and I'm looking over here because, and I'll tell you everybody, because I'm making sure the internet's with us. So I keep clicking that our Wi-Fi is working, because we have other people in here talking about your storytelling. Great information over here. Thank you very much, George 1960 collecting music over here, and Bob Dylan. So he had the balls to go to your dad saying, hey, people think you're over. Picture saying that to a Jack Ponte or somebody. You know what I'm saying? Well,
to us, Matthew and I just thought he was some homeless guy with crazy hair that would never leave. Bob was over at the house all the time. And it was really that kind of a scene up there. You got to imagine when it was. Okay, so this would have been 66-ish, 66, 67, kind of knocking on the summer of love. And you had the kind of people that were coming over all the time to visit were like, Jackson Brown, Joni Mitchell, Dylan, of course, Linda Ronstadt, my first crush, and my first concert other than my dad. We'll get to that later. The guys in Crosby, Stills, and Nash, they were Buffalo Springfield at the time. All of those people were over. Mama Cass was our babysitter. George Harrison lived next door. He was always over in the morning. He shared breakfast with us for a year, and always sat in our dad's study listening to those James Burton solos with our father at the time. And that was a pretty vibrant time for the Beatles too, was around that time. So to us, it was our normal, growing up in that. Dude, everybody had an acoustic guitar in their hand at the time. Everyone was writing a song at all times. Everybody was singing. And it was really cool because there was a scene going on at a legendary club down on Wilshire Boulevard called the Troubadour Club. And it was kind of like the epicenter of what became known as the California Sound. And on any given day, you could see all of those bands playing. And our dad actually had put this whole Stone Canyon Band country rock concept together. And he talked to Doug Weston, who owned the Troubadour at the time, and asked if he could actually be put on the bill one night on a weekend. And Weston said, no way, you're yesterday's news. You're totally uncool. This is about cool here. And you're not cool, you know? And he's like, well, dude, I'm not Fabian, you know, I'm just, you know, and he goes, well, you know, that's the way it is. It's my club and it's my way or the highway. And my dad said, okay, well, respectfully, how much would it cost to rent your club for a week? And our dad opened the next night and rented out the club for himself for the entire week. And the first night, a bunch of critics there with, you know, folded arms wanting to hate it. But man, he ripped. He was really honest and good and special and competent. And the next night for the rest of the week, you know, there was a line around the block. They actually recorded it. It was called Rick Nelson Live at the Troubadour. Actually, hang on a second here.
I love your stories.
I was going to be talking to you.
I gotta tell you something, Gunn. Your stories are so great that I don't even need to ask a question here because you really have the best stories over here. And
dude, I talk a lot. I know.
I love it. You make it easy for me.
That's the record.
Hold on. Let me make this big. Hold on. I'll make you big. Okay.
Okay. Rick Nelson Live at the Troubadour. Okay. That was the one. There's his Stone Canyon band on the back, ripping it up on stage at that legendary club. And,
wow.
You know, it was really great. I always say when people they consider you, they count you over and yesterday's news, man, if you still have the passion, it makes you a very dangerous person when you got nothing to lose. You know, when you've already been discounted and put on the trash heap, you actually are afforded this, in our dad's case, this rare opportunity, grown up famous thing about it. He grew up on TV in front of generations of Americans. And because he was considered basically his father's Oldsmobile, he had this anonymity and this lack of faith from the industry to where he could be brave and bold and take a chance. And that was the thing that really it made an impression on both my brother and myself, that if you're going to make music, you can make the mistake of trying to chase trends, or because what happens in our industry, it's always happened forever. It's a business, right? So let's say, for example, a Guns N' Roses gets signed and it breaks huge.
Yeah.
Every label in the world wants to sign their Guns N' Roses. And that's it. You know, Nirvana happens. And then for a decade, if you're not, you know, heroin addicted and from Seattle, you don't get a record deal. That's the way it's always worked through all the generations, you know. But our dad said, you know, you got to look at it this way. If you do something that's unique to you and you're following your heart and you do the best you possibly can, and it's unique, it doesn't follow any trends, you're going to hear a lot of no's in the beginning. You're going to get a lot of doors shut on your face. Just like me and Matt, we got turned down by every label in LA and New York like twice. We made the rounds. Didn't happen for us. Took forever. And that was during the Jack Ponte years. That's another story.
That's a whole nother story.
A whole other story. Yeah. But, you know, Jack heard it, you know, and not a lot of people do in the beginning when you're doing something new.
Yeah. But
he said, win or lose, if you're successful or not, you win no matter what, as long as you're doing your thing. But he said, there's only one thing worse than not happening if you're not successful. And that is faking it, playing a character, being disingenuous, trying to chase a trend for the sake of commerce. Because even if you strike gold and you're not authentic, you still lose because you're not getting that spiritual fulfillment. I mean, one example I always use is like my friends in Cheap Trick, one of my favorite bands of all time. I love those guys.
Yeah.
And at one point they really needed a hit, and their record company talked them into doing a Diane Warren song. And they're great writers, you know, but you know, Diane, and I love her too. You know, so many hits and such a great writer, especially for people who don't write. You know, she's a great writer for people who don't write. She's a queen of schmaltz.
Yeah.
Tons of number ones. And they did a song called The Flame. Now, the guys in the band, from everything I hear through our friends, never wanted to do that song. They got pressured into doing it. It was a big old hairy number one hit. And they now have to play it every single night on stage, you know?
It's like signing a deal with the devil. That's it.
It's like every night. It's like, oh, you know, they're doing I Want You to Want Me and all this stuff. And it's like, gosh, we got to do The Flame again, you know? and I never wanted to be that kind of artist. And actually growing up during that whole Stone Canyon band era, it was really great for me because I saw my dad kick it through the goalpost with a song he wrote when he had a record deal with MCA, and they just wanted, they hoped that he wouldn't wake up one day. He, Ozzie was such a great negotiator. He had negotiated $1 million a year for our dad, play or not. They had to write a check for $1 million every single year for like 25 years. And, he hadn't had a hit in a number of years, and they were writing these big checks. So, they were basically trying to get him to quit. And the head of the label, went overseas on vacation and stuff. And he thought that the Rick Nelson deal was about to be over and stuff. And while he was on vacation in Europe, our dad had that whole experience at Madison Square Garden, got booed off the stage by 20,000 people for not looking like black and white TV Ricky. He had his long hair and his country rock band and all that stuff. And he wrote the song Garden Party about that experience. He was producing his own record at the time. And he liked that song so much that he added it to the record that was already done, renamed the record Garden Party, took that defiant picture of, standing there with a black Les Paul making that statement, I'm not the acoustic Ricky anymore, I'm the electric Rick. And, this guy comes back from Europe, and, Pete Fornatal had made Garden Party a big giant hit, much to his chagrin. And he had a whole, 20 years more to his career. But I really love that tagline, and it's really kind of a family motto. You can't please everyone. You got to please yourself. And the older I get,
great line.
Man, look, in order to do what you do, and for everybody out there who's watching this, if you've been doing it for a long time, I feel blessed because I love what I do. I've always loved what I do. But in my business, you better freaking love what you do. This is not easy. People think money for nothing and chicks for free. To do what I do and not sell your soul to the devil to do it is really, really hard. And I come from a long line of brave people that never sold out, and they did things their way. And it was a great thing, but it's never been an easy path, and it's never been a straight path. It's had a lot of twists and turns in it, but here we are still making music. And more importantly, as music fans, as everybody who's watching your show, we all are connected by a shared love of music. Yeah. Music to us isn't background noise in a video game. We remember a time, and I still live it this way, when my favorite band was coming out with an album, I couldn't wait to go down there and put my allowance money down for that, and then take it home and take it out of the plastic and open it up and look at the pictures and read the liner notes when I'm hearing it back for the first time. And you get halfway through and you're lost in it. And all of a sudden you get jarred out of it because you run out of side one, and you run over there and flip it over and put on side two. And, to us, the music was the point. It was it. And it was this great escape. And, I got to be honest with you, man, Matthew and I had a really crappy childhood. It was really hard. Our parents had just the most brutal divorce in Hollywood history. Our dad was off on the road forever. Our mom was lost in a Jack Daniels bottle. And it was just, a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
But like them as well, music was our salvation, and we were there for each other, and we had our faith, and all that stuff was really cool. But man, when I heard my godfather's John Boylan, and a legendary producer, he manages Linda Ronstadt now, but he was back there during that whole troubadour scene with our dad. As a matter of fact, he was producing our father the night Matthew and I were born. They went down to the hospital at St. Joseph's.
Wow.
When they got the phone call together. Our dad was in the studio, so they broke and went down there and, shared a cigar together over us, which was cool. And we've always stayed in touch. He's always been my major mentor, not only for songwriting, but for studio production. And I'll never forget, man, being 14 and a half, and John shows up at the house, and he's hanging out with our mom to say hi. And he gives me a record he's been working on, because at the time he was an executive at Epic. And he said, hey, I just finished making this record that I think you're going to like. Check it out. This is one of my prized possessions. So check this out.
Yes.
Okay, hang on a second.
That's all right.
All right. This was for radio only. This record was not the first record I bought. However, this record changed my life.
Boston. Hold that back. Push it.
Okay.
Hold it back. You're right there. Yeah.
There you go. I would like you to note, this is a picture disc for radio promotion only.
Wow.
And this is the copy that I got from John when I was 14 and a half.
Wow.
And when I heard Barry Goudreau playing guitar on that record and Tom Schultz playing Hammond B3 and these great songs and Brad Delp singing, it was a paradigm shift in me where it was like, okay, yeah, I grew up with a singer-songwriter Southern California thing all around me. But I know I was a drummer at the time. Matthew played bass, I played drums. I just thought, man, one day, I want to play that kind of guitar.
Yeah.
I want to feel what that feels like, And so that was really cool. And I knew that we were going to have our interview today. And I was thinking about all these records that I've had throughout my childhood. Like a lot of times people think that Matthew and I came from that whole Sunset Strip hairband thing. And that's actually not true at all. Matt and I started a lot younger than that. We started at our start in playing live was when we were 12 years old. It was a full decade before, when the LA club scene was really vibrant, and they had all these bands that had it seemed before their name, skinny tie bands and stuff. So it was like the Sharks and the Jets. You had the punkers. So, my friends in Black Flag and the Dead Kennedys and the Vandals and stuff, and X. You had your punk guys, and then you had your pop guys. And Matthew and I gravitated more towards the pop sensibility at the time. So we were sharing the stage with bands like the Knack and the Go-Go's and stuff. We were 12-year-old kids getting escorted into nightclubs so we could play. We started playing when we were 6, So we spent a whole decade pretty much doing that whole scene in clubs long before that whole Sunset Strip hairband thing started happening. And as a result, my cousin Kathy Nelson, she basically created the job of a music supervisor for movies. And she was working at Universal at the time. And every now and again, she would bring over these great records a year before people would hear them, when they were still like either just in acetate form, or like I heard Hit Me With Your Best Shot by Pat Benatar a year before anybody had heard it.
Wow.
And I heard that and was like, okay, that's just next level stuff. That's unbelievable. And she played all these great,
crazy.
Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I got the first record 6 months before it even was released. And I heard that thing and I went, man, that kicks ass. That's a great record, right? There was another band. Check this out. This band never really caught on, and it was a shame. And forever, I thought that this band was a New York band, and it wasn't, because the picture looked very New York. But this was an LA band called Susad and the Next. You ever heard of these guys?
I have not heard of them. Susad.
Okay,
no.
There was a movie in the 80s called Looker, and Sue actually sang the soundtrack for that movie and a couple of other movies. But I highly recommend it. This is a hard get, but if you're into like guitar-driven, heavy power pop kind of rock and roll, she sings her ass off. She's like really right up there with Pat as far as her vocal chops are concerned. The songwriting is great. There was a guitar player, producer named Tony Ripparetti who did all the writing and the producing and stuff. But that was a record that Matthew and I got when we were like 13. And we heard that. And so it's kind of cool because we were surrounded by all this new music that was being made at a really, really high level. And because even though we were so young, we were expected to hold our own from the time we were kids. Like the big clubs at the time. Everybody, nowadays talks about the Whiskey and the Rainbow and Gazzari's and all these Sunset Strip clubs. Matt and I cut our teeth 10 years before, like I said, at Madame Wong's West, Madame Wong's Chinatown, the Central, which Johnny Depp later bought and became the Viper Room.
Yeah.
Those were our clubs. And like say at Wong's West was like the Police played there and stuff. It was really this hub of musical activity at the time. And they had 2 floors. If you were starting out or building your following, you played downstairs. When you actually started drawing a lot of people, Esther Wong, who did the booking, would put you upstairs in the main room on a weekend. Now, playing a weekend at Wong's West upstairs, it was for bands like the Knack and the Go-Go's and the Bangles and X and all of those bands who were pretty big at the time. And Matt and I, we basically had to work our way up, and it took a couple of years to do it. We were writing original songs. We weren't playing covers and all that. And fortunately, the songs started getting a little better. And then, we got to the point where we were actually headlining the main room upstairs, which was actually pretty cool. And I realized kind of like at that time it would have been, we actually played our first sold out show at the Central the week before our father passed away, and our dad got a chance to see that show. And our band at the time was called the Strange Agents. That was our band. Wow. And our dad caught that show, and we had a conversation about that. It's not really that impressive to sell out the Central, by the way. It holds like 10 people. Okay, yeah. Just to let you know. But it was a sellout, which was really cool, standing room only. And we had totally gotten bitten by the bug. And I remember a conversation I had with our father, and he said, I saw the three bands before you guys played. And the one thing I noticed is that all of the bands, they were playing originals, but pretty much the girls that came to see them were waiting for that one song in their set that you could tell that they loved more than any. They sat through the whole set and suffered through the whole set for that one song that they sang all the words to. And he said, fellas, you got some pretty strong songs, but wouldn't it be kind of cool if you had a whole set full of songs that were like that? And we were like, well, Pop, it's easy for you to say. You've got nothing but hits in your set, of course, I mean, the guy sold 500 million singles. There's no pressure or anything, right? And he said, yeah, well, just really think about that, because he said, if you boys are going to do this, which obviously it looks like you're going to, you haven't quit and it's been all this time. He said, learn from me. Okay. First off, remember this, keep your sense of humor, because in this business, you're going to need it.
Yeah.
And two, it's all about the songwriting. You could go to any town, anywhere, and find someone that looks better than you, plays better than you, sings better than you, has better equipment and a better stage presence or whatever. But it's your songs that are going to make people want to have you as a part of their lives from that point on. And you'll feel connected. And if you do it the right way and you write songs about things that they connect with and care about, you're going to be in their life forever. And that was really cool, because he said, when he started out, obviously he didn't start writing songs, had to learn later. And we had the benefit of getting that rare advice from our dad to start out being songwriters first. And that's what we did. So at that point, after our dad died, and that was a real serious blow, obviously, at the time. I was a drummer at that time. Yeah. Matt was the bass player, and we were a rhythm section. And I usually sang backup and all that stuff. And we kind of went back to the drawing board and really did an intensive for 2.5 years of nothing but writing. I mean, the last gig we really did with me as a drummer, Matt and I were the only unsigned band in history to be the musical guests on Saturday Night Live. And you can't really find the footage out there, because we again, as the only unsigned band, we didn't have a record company that they could get clearance for to like put it in reruns and air. So it's really hard to find.
Who was the host of that show?
Ron Reagan Jr.
Really?
Ron Reagan Jr. Yep. The president's son.
Wow.
Which was pretty ironic, because Ron apparently, now this is allegedly, Ron, when he was a young man, had an indiscretion with my mother, and they were very close. So he was kind of like Uncle Ronnie. It's like, with my mom, which uncle is this, Mom? And so that was actually kind of a cool, awkward moment when we all showed up at that place. I hadn't seen Ron since he was like jumping out the window with a ball of clothes in his hand when I was young. But it's rock and roll, man. It was fun. But we actually fulfilled our contract to do that show, which we actually got booked before our dad died, and we had to do that. But flying back, it was like one of those plane trips that was very interesting for me. I fell asleep in my seat, and I had a visit from my dad, and it was like, I don't know if you've ever had a dream, you've ever fallen asleep in your bed, and the dream continues in the space that you're in. So it's very hard to discern the difference between what was a dream and what was real. And so I dreamed that I was sitting there in my airplane seat, and my dad sat down next to me and had a conversation with me. And he showed me this vision of a silhouette of me and Matthew up front on stage holding guitars together. And that's all that really was. And I knew in that moment when I woke up, I went over to Matt's seat and I said, bro, I just had the most amazing thing happen. Bear with me. But, I just got a visit and I got to learn how to play guitar. I don't want to be a drummer anymore. I want to come up front. I want to learn how to play guitar, and I want to do this together with you. And, much to Matthew's credit, I've thought about this a lot. If the shoes were reversed, and Matt had come to me after we had been a successful rhythm section and had just done national TV and our star was on the rise, and said, I want to sabotage everything we've worked for since we were kids. And I want to learn how to play the tuba, and I want to, do something completely different and stuff. I would think he was absolutely nuts, and I'd check him into a home, But, it was really interesting because I think he saw something in my eyes that I was committed to this.
Yeah.
This is something that I was going to do. And he, to his credit, he was very, very supportive. And I just told him, I said, look, right now I'm not in the shape. Neither one of us are in the shape to go out and play and continue this. We're gut shot at all this. We were dealing with a press that, on top of everything, they were making was it the Washington Post? I think it was one of those papers, one of those rags started a rumor that our dad was doing drugs on the plane, and that's what brought the plane down. It was all bullshit. It was all proven completely false. But of course they printed it, 8 months later on page 10, this little retraction, but the damage was done. And we were dealing with all that stuff too. So I said, look, man, I want to go away, and Matt, bear with me here. Here's what I think.
Yeah.
When someone tells you they've been playing guitar for 10 years, if they're lucky, they've had the instrument in their hand for an hour a day. Life happens. They've got their commitments and all that stuff. So if someone says, I've been playing guitar for 10 years, okay, maybe the instrument has been in their hand for an hour a day. Matt, what if I sit down and every day for 10 hours a day, all I do is study guitar? That's it. I don't go to work. I don't go to school. I sit down and this is what I do. Stands to reason that in a year, I'll have the same experience as your normal guy playing for 10 years. And that's what I did for 10 hours a day, every day for that year. That's how I healed myself, is I learned how to play guitar, and I studied, and I went down to Guitar Center and I got some Starlicks tapes for Randy Rhoads and George Lynch and all those great rock players. And I brought them home and I taught myself how to play guitar.
Do you do metal? What's that? Doug? Remember Doug Marks? Metal? Remember that guy?
No. Marshall.
What was the guy?
Marshall. Wolf Marshall.
Was it okay?
And it was Starlicks. Was
okay.
the thing. Yes, that's exactly what I did. We didn't have the internet at the time, but it was actually pretty cool. I could read tablature and kind of figure things out, and I was passionate about it. And so, during that time, we got our record deal with John Kolodner at Geffen. We started making our demos, and that was me playing all the guitars on the Nelson records. And it was just after a year of teaching myself how to do it. But yet again, music and a passion for music really, really saved me. It really rescued me from. Look, Matt and I, honestly, we have every excuse in the world to be your typical Hollywood tragedy. We should have turned to drugs and felt entitled and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And hang on a second here. And we never did that. It was always music, and we always felt like guys on a mission. To us, our music was a means to an end. We realized that you keep your eye on the prize and you keep your attitude positive. I don't mean to sound like Tony Robbins here, but we're living proof that you can actually be completely written off and discounted and surprise people and improve the quality of people's lives in the process. That's all I ever wanted to do, man. All I ever wanted to do was make music. Yeah. And to this day, when I'm out and about and I hear one of my songs playing or something, it is the greatest rush in the world, almost as great as writing a song and it getting released and you going out there on stage and you're playing it and you're seeing people sing it back to you at the same time. And you remember where you were when you wrote it. And just like everything else, there's no guarantees that anybody would ever hear it. But, you have this faith and belief that, you're going to get a shot one day and you just got to be ready when that shot comes. And man, music is it. For us,
it's your therapy, but you had also a great role model in what your dad said to you at the Central. that
Yeah.
gig, those
Yeah.
words, and you did it. You went and you dug deep into it. It's funny. Your dad, how many hit songs? 50? How many on the Billboard charts?
Oh my
50
goodness. I don't
plus?
know how many on the Billboard charts, but top four, he had already over 50
He had
top 40 hits.
He was one of the first on the like for that list of
Well,
entertainers
the
on
list
Billboard.
you're talking about the Billboard Hot 100.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. For
Okay.
your viewers
Yes.
and listeners out there, there are multiple charts every single week. And Billboard was really the one. Back in the 50s, early on, it was Cashbox was it. And then Billboard magazine comes along. And they have they had a couple of charts in the beginning. Now they've got a bunch of them. They've got, urban, they've got country, they've got,
Yeah.
holiday. There are all kinds of different charts. But the holy grail of charts is the Billboard Hot 100. And that is the top songs in the world from all the genres based on sales and airplay. So having a number one Billboard Hot 100 song legitimately means you're like the number one act in the world that week, which is really cool. And Ricky Nelson's Poor Little Fool was the very first number one on the Billboard Hot 100 chart when they invented it.
That's pretty cool. When they invented it. That's pretty cool. Now think about this. He was the first of that and his ups and downs. And then he's doing Garden Party at the, he's playing this and it's like, hey man, they're like dissing him and he's getting booed. And then that goes and charts up that song later on.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Man, I'm telling you, Nelsons have been annoying people forever. Because just when you think it's like, God, these guys are like, I always say Nelsons breed like cockroaches and we're just as tough to kill. It's great coming from a long line of people who they won't quit. Like Grandpa Ozzie, for example, what a genius he was. He graduated with a law degree from Rutgers. People don't know that, so he was really smart. So when he would go into meetings in Hollywood, he would kind of aw shucks his way into those meetings and through those meetings. And he would leave owning the family television show. And it was the executives not knowing what the hell just happened. My God, what happened? And so as a result, Ozzie Nelson and Desi Arnaz were the only two guys to own their own network television show.
Unheard of.
That's it.
It was unheard of back then.
It was because Grandpa Ozzie, of course, got all kinds of doors slammed in his face too. Like he started out as a crooner. So this is back in the Rudy Valley days and stuff. As I mentioned, he had his number one in 1935. He wanted to freshen up his act. So he thought actually having a chanteuse, a female singer in his band was going to be good for business. No one had done that in a big band before. No one had a female singer in a big band. So he was the first guy. So he had heard of Harriet Hilliard. He was in the New York area at the time. And they basically, it's pretty funny. There was a competition at the time. The big place to play was a place called the Glen Island Casino. And the casino did a contest. And they asked all of the readers of the New York, I think it was the New York Post or New York Times, to vote on which band leader they wanted to have at the Glen Island Casino for that particular summer that was coming up. So in Ozzie Nelson fashion, of course, he enlisted his 25-piece orchestra and their families to go out and basically canvass the New York area and buy every copy of the newspaper for like that week, fill out all the votes on the back of it and send them in. And of course, he started out at the Glen Island Casino that summer. And to freshen the whole thing up, he actually went and scouted Harriet Hilliard. And she was a bigger star at the time than he was. She was making movies with Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire and all that. But she always said that she felt something really powerful with Oz. They put their act together. They were great singing off each other. But the legend is their chemistry was so natural and their banter back and forth was so funny that it's like Cheech and Chong. They started out as a music act and basically with Oz and Harriet, their songs kept on getting shorter and shorter and their banter longer and longer until it was pretty much a comedy act with some music thrown in. And that was when Red Skelton, who was the biggest star of the day, caught their show, said, hey, my radio show is the number one show in the world at the time, but I think ABC, my network, would really like you guys on radio. Why don't you guest on my show and we'll try it out? The response was great. ABC offered them their own radio show, which was a big hit. It ran for, I think, 5 years, and it had over 400 original scripts that Ozzie wrote through those years. And then they basically, it went to television at that point because they were a big hit on radio. And Grandpa Ozzie, as a lawyer, there was a clause he put in his contract, which we now refer to as the evolving technologies clause. If you've ever done an entertainment contract, and it has that one weird sentence in there that says, you know, in this universe, in any other universe, in this form of entertainment or any invented in the future, that whole thing, that's the Ozzie Nelson clause.
No way.
Yeah. And so when television was invented, he owned the radio show, so it went to the television show. And that was the longest running television sitcom in history, live action sitcom, at 14 and a half years, 435 episodes, surpassed only by The Simpsons. And that doesn't count because they never age for some reason.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And again, they had their number ones, and then their number one, and then our dad had Poor Little Fool and Traveling Man, his number ones, and Matt and I had Love and Affection, and it put us in the Guinness Book as the only family with 3 generations of number one hitmakers.
That's so cool. You know what? I got to show something really cool, and the copyright strikes. So I'll have to edit it out, but this is something cool that you did with your brothers right here, and you did a version of Garden Party. Let's see how I can do this. Bam! Check this out. The first time all 3 Nelson brothers performed together. Is this true right here?
Yeah, and basically the last time too.
It was. Tell me what happened over here now. I thought that was pretty cool right there.
It was cool. We just don't get along with Sam. You know, Matthew and I don't see eye to eye with him at all. We come from different generations. You know, the irony is our entire lives, people have just assumed that Matthew and I are trust fund kids. And nothing could be further from the truth. It didn't happen that way. Our dad died $4.5 million in debt. Mm. And Matt and I spent the next 12 years paying back all of his debts to keep his honor. The estate never declared bankruptcy, but when we made our money from our first publishing deal and our record deal and all that stuff, it was to pay back our dad's debts. Mm-hmm. And so we've always worked really hard at that. But there are other generations that don't come from that era. And, you know, I think that's why the world has the problems that it has right now. There's too much entitlement going on. Yeah. You know, we're not building warriors anymore. We're building parasites. And, you know, I'm not saying that's the case in our case or anything, but Matt and I don't know what it's like to not work hard for everything. Yeah. And it's just a generation gap, you know. So that particular performance, I'm glad we did it. It was totally impromptu. The shoot itself, we actually filmed something called Ricky Nelson Sings. And Ricky Nelson Sings was a video project we did with Capitol Records at the time. And it was just to film the interview footage for that DVD release. And the DVD release is our dad with his performances from Ozzie and Harriet and stuff. And then interviews going in and out of the breaks and stuff like that. It's a really good thing. It went gold and it was cool. But the producers who were putting that together organized, they arranged for the shoot to be at Lion Share Studios. And that day we were also going to be interviewing James Burton as well. And so I told the producer the day before, I said, so let me get this straight. You're going to have me and Matthew there in a world-class recording studio with James Burton, and you're not going to record us?
That's crazy.
Are you insane? Because at the time they like hired like these fake instruments and all that stuff just for looks. I said, we're bringing our stuff down, brought an amp down for James. We wound up recording with James, which was a lot of fun and stuff. And just as an afterthought, the producer at the end of the night said, hey, why don't the 3 Nelson boys go out there and do Garden Party? So that's what we did. We didn't really think much of it. And I'm glad we did it. Don't get me wrong. Really glad that we did it. And it was really cool. But, you know, just since then, we've gone in different directions from our little brother. And it just, you know, family's tough, man. I'm going to tell you for anybody, family's tough. Yes. But I'll tell you what, doing business with family is extra tough. It's extra tough. And, you know, it's just kind of one of those things. And you know, sometimes, unfortunately, you know, as Jack Ponte would say, it's, you know, you don't have to like somebody to make money with them, right? You just got to make sure that they love money more than they hate you.
That's very true. It's very true.
Yeah,
but
so,
you know what? Hey, I know about craziness and I know about drama with family. Hey, look at the Bee Gees. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But I will say this, you guys, it sounded great. That was a
Oh, thank you, man.
really beautiful tribute to your dad. Here's a real clip for everybody watching. Here's the original right here, over here.
I went to a garden party to reminisce with my old friends. A chance to share old memories.
I hate the copyright strike, but you know what? While this is playing, I gotta leave this up for a second. That bass tone, I mean, it sounds so great. And look at your dad. It's so funny because he's a rock star, handsome, sounds great. And I was reading when he was a little kid, when he was first starting out, he was I don't know if this is true. Was he insecure, or they were saying he was a little shy kid? Is this true? Was your dad? Because I can't picture this guy being like that.
Well, he was, I think shy is kind of the right word to use.
Yeah.
He was two different characters on Ozzie and Harriet. Obviously, he was himself the entire time, but when he was a little boy, he had a burr haircut, and they called him the irrepressible Ricky. He's kind of like this wisecracking kid who always got the punchlines. And then when he got older and he went through that teenage phase, I mean, his gangly awkward phase was very, very short. I mean, he was a beautiful man. I mean, for real. And because of that, and because he was one of these guys that, man, it was really annoying. This is a guy who just seemed to be able to pick up any instrument that would take anybody years and years and years to play, and he'd master it within a week and then get bored and move on to something else, and so he didn't really have to try that hard. And he was so charismatic and so good looking.
I mean,
that
look at him.
As far as the ladies were concerned, he never really had to have any game at all, because he didn't really have to talk, He was just very understated and stuff. And, he was a very reserved guy, but he had a great wry sense of humor. He always seemed to he was one of those guys that would wait all night at a party in a room with his back holding up the wall and wait for that one opportunity to have the one zinger of a punchline, and just be real quiet and all that stuff. And then he'd say one thing, make the whole room laugh, and then he'd retreat. And that's just kind of who he was.
Yeah, he was cool. He was cool, man,
I think he was most comfortable, to be honest with you, when he had a guitar in his hand and he was on stage doing his thing. He always said he felt far more at home on stage than he did in the real world.
Yeah.
And, I think that was both a good and a bad thing. Ozzie was such a huge presence in his life that when Oz passed away, I mean, Oz was his manager and his father and his best friend and his mentor and really the true north and his compass. And when Oz died, it was very, very difficult for our dad to adjust, because at that point he was a family man. He had 3 kids at the time, soon to have 4. The music industry was changing like crazy. And he was having lots of trouble with our mom. They were married at the time, but fighting like cats and dogs and basically coasting on vapors at that time. It was a really tough time for him. And so his answer to that, I think, was just to retreat to what he was comfortable with. So up until the day he died, he was doing 300 shows a year. That's what he did, because being a father and being at home and being in the real world was not something he did easily. He wasn't comfortable with that. But give him a guitar and point him to a stage, man, he was there, There. But don't get me wrong, he was a great guy. He really was. I never had to question whether or not he loved me and Matt, because he did, and he expressed that all the time. And we loved him too. We were really tight. But he wasn't really equipped to be a father. He was kind of a man child. He never really had to grow up. He had all of these people around him doing things for him. I mean, the true joke in the family is he never really knew how to write a personal check until he was 35.
Is that true?
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah, he had handlers around him and all that stuff. Especially when you're on a TV show and you're selling millions of records and doing all stuff. I'm talking the first phase. You don't have to really do anything at that point. You just have to show up to work and be a pro and throw down and know your lines, kind of. Our dad was famous for writing down his lines and stuff and hiding them in drawers and things like that all around the set. And it would piss David off to no end, because David would really have to study his script. And our dad would go out on dates and go to concerts and stuff and never really never really care. And everybody loved our dad and stuff because he was so natural. Well, of course he was natural. He didn't know what the hell he was doing, and he wasn't memorizing anything. He was kind of like reading as he went.
That's
you
funny.
know?
So
No,
he just naturally had it. He just had it.
He just did. It was even funnier when it pissed David off to the point where he like warned him not to do that anymore. And it was kind of like a Ron Burgundy Anchorman moment. David wrote a whole bunch of like, profane lines and all that kind of stuff, and replaced what our dad had hidden in the drawers for one day's worth of work and all that stuff. So, he walked over there into the cookie jar and he took the lid off and pretended he was getting a cookie in there, and he read what he thought it was line. He rehearsed it, and he got grounded for a month.
Wow. So now you have some of the records of your dad on the side over here. Do you have some of his actual records?
Oh, I do. I mean, the big one that I got for you, actually, of my dad's, because I didn't know how long we were going to talk.
Well, you and I could talk forever, and I don't want to keep you here. We could leave whenever you want.
No, this is cool. I mean, I had the whole Live at the Troubadour thing, which is absolutely awesome.
I love you. You know what? I got to be honest with you, man. Your stories are so great. I mean, they really are the best.
Thanks.
And there's so many. There's not enough time, because you could have a whole mini series.
Okay, well, I accept.
That's it.
I accept.
Who wants to make a movie about this family?
We haven't talked about Fleetwood Mac rumors being.
Hold on.
We haven't talked about Pyromania.
Okay,
we
hold on.
We haven't talked about my favorite Michael Jackson record, which was Off the Wall. It wasn't Thriller.
You know what? Wait, don't move from that Jackson and the Fleetwood. Stay with me for a second. Those records, you and I from the same generation, because right there, I just went and saw Stevie Nicks play. My friend Sharon Solani is her backup singer. And it was such a magical concert. She still rocks. And that album, the best drums, hold that up for everybody. Anybody out there that doesn't know this record,
Fleetwood Mac rumors.
The best drum sounds on that. Those drums, that album, one of my favorite drum sounds on that. And the writing, it's great. Is that the original that you have there?
This is the original. Yeah.
That's when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The label. Let's see the label on that for the vinyl real connoisseurs. It's the you'll see the label on that. There's an original.
It's Reprise.
Oh wow.
It's Reprise. And Matthew worked with the producer, and what I love about this record more than anything is that this record was made when they all hated each other.
That's crazy.
Stevie and Lindsay were fighting like cats and dogs, and they just basically put them in the studio and let them fight it out. And this incredible body of work came from that incredibly painful time in their lives and stuff. And boy, talk about a band that no one had any expectations for at that time. They were a blues band up until that point.
Yeah, a whole different band. It was a
completely different band. And they went in the studio and gosh, just every single song on Rumors is amazing. I actually don't even know the stat of how many records they've sold.
Oh, I wish I could look up. I don't want to mess anything up here and throw us out. But
I mean, of Rumors, but we're talking in the tens of millions, correct?
You're Dumb Too is watching, and You're Dumb Too. He always puts up the facts up here. If you could post it up, I'll show it up here. You're Dumb Too.
Yeah, would you please? Because that would be really great.
Yeah, that's it. Look right here, because You're Dumb Too. And I used to think this poor person was a woman. It's a man, but You're Dumb Too. I love you. Give us the facts up there. You're the best.
I gotta know, because I'm gonna guess 50 million.
Okay, 50 million you guess.
That's my guess.
Okay, let's see some of the guests in the chat over here. There's not one bad song. Actually, I just bought a copy of Stevie and Lindsay's albums right before that, which is a great record too. They're both on the
Buckingham
cover.
Nicks? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
great
you
stuff.
Have great stuff.
Great stuff. Well, John Boylan was involved in that too. So yeah, that was always around. Shifting gears because I don't want to run out of time.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. But when I was 12 years old, going on 13, it was his emancipation record from his family. It wasn't the Jackson 5 anymore. It was this one. This is the one that did it.
Great one.
This is one of, if not in my opinion, the best R&B record ever made. This record is so good, start to finish. There isn't one song on this.
She's
album
Out of My Life is on that, right? Is it?
Yep.
Great song.
Yep. And I mean, how classic.
Rock with You's on it.
Rock With You's on it. I love it. That's the album cover.
And look at him. Look at him. He still looked like the Jack. He looked like Michael, what we knew growing up. He was growing up.
And he had just started really dancing. Just started. You know, gosh, man.
What was the first track on that? The first
was.
track, it was such a great song.
Well, it's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough.
That's it. The first, what a great.
I mean, I'm gonna list some of these. Check it out. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Rock With You is number 2. Okay, Working Day and Night, 3. Get on the Floor, 4. Off the Wall, 5. Girlfriend, 6. She's Out of My Life, 7. I Can't Help It, 8.
Great song.
It's the Falling in Love, 9. And Burn This Disco Out is the
great
last
song. Burn This. That was so cool. Quincy
One record,
Jones,
man.
Quincy
One
Jones,
record.
right?
Yes, Quincy Jones.
Great record. She's Out of My Life. Do you remember Modern Romance with Albert Brooks? He's thinking about his girlfriend in the car, and he turns on the radio.
Yeah.
He drives her home.
I got every single song. Right.
What a great one.
Goodness. And I know I'm shifting around. I just want to share a couple records that were important to me.
Yeah.
The first high fidelity record as a producer I ever heard was when the Sony Walkman had just come out. Okay. It had just come out, and I heard this record for the first time.
Hold that a little back. Let them see the cover of that one. The
Supertramp, Crime of the Century.
Great one.
This was the first time I actually put on an album and sonically escaped. I put this album on, and I entered a new world, and things were flying in from all over the place, and it took me on a journey. You know, from start to finish when I listened to this record, and it inspired me to learn more about the recording studio. And to me, it was really like the first hi-fi record I ever listened to.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, having great songs is really, really cool, but imagine having great songs and incredible sonics. How cool would that be? And so that's been a pursuit. The year that Matthew and I were covering after our father died, this was on endless loop in our Mustang when we were driving around. Was the Outfields Play Deep.
Oh man, great album.
And, you know, it's hard to beat this record as a pop rock record. You know, it's just unbelievable. And I wanted to share with you the first album I ever bought. Hang on one second.
I mean, that song from it still sounds great. And
Say It Isn't So.
It's so great.
Well, I mean, Your Love was the big one. That was the big. But my favorite one was Say It Isn't So. But this is the first record I ever bought.
Oh, Hot Child in the City. What a great
Nick Gilder.
There it is. Bam.
Hot Child in the City.
And that intro, just the bass and drums, how it kicks in. What so cool, man. So cool. And it was 45 right here. Sold over 45 million, Fleetwood Mac rumors.
Okay, so I was close.
You were close.
I was close.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. Now, this is not streams. It's not downloads. This is physical sales of people going down to a record store when there was such a thing and actually buying that.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Crazy. Unbelievable. When you
and
get
this
out
was
of your
also
house.
a big one when I was a kid, too.
Oh,
ready?
my God. Dude, great one right there. Bam. Hold that a little back.
Speed of sound, baby.
Great. And opens up, right? It's a gatefold.
No, this one isn't the gatefold.
That's not the gatefold. Okay. No, that's it. That's the back. Okay.
Hang on a second. But tons of groovy pictures from the studio. See, this is stuff that I lived for.
And that guitar play, it's Jimmy. Is it the guitar player on that? Is it Jimmy? What's his last name?
Let me see who played on this here.
He passed away. If it's the one I'm thinking about, he passed away young. Name the cats in McCartney's band on that.
My gosh.
Jimmy McCullough.
Dude, they're not even listed on this record here.
Oh, they're not?
Not the copy I've got.
Oh,
I think this might be a repop because this was something that I loved so much here.
Let me see. Hold the back of that album cover because it's showing the guys' faces right there. Yeah, that's Jimmy McCulloch, Denny Lane. There's McCartney on top, Linda, and that's Denny Lane. That's Jimmy McCulloch, and I think the drummer. What's his name? I forgot the drummer at the bottom.
Well, hang on a second. I think they're credited here. So we got Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney, Denny Lane, Jimmy McCulloch, Joe English.
Joe English was the drummer.
On drums, and the horns were Tony Dorsey, Thaddeus Richard, Steve Howard, and Howie Casey.
Is that with Silly Love Songs on that album?
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're putting me through the test here too. I'm doing pretty good, huh?
Yeah. And Silly Love Songs was on that. And you know what he wrote Silly Love Songs as a response to, right? You know the story behind that, right?
Well, he's to Lennon, isn't he?
Yeah.
Writing to Lennon on that one.
Lennon was talking down on him on a talk show that he happened to tune into. And John was talking smack about Paul and, him always writing silly love songs. So I love that he comes out. Some people say they've had enough of silly love songs.
Yeah.
I look around me and I see it isn't so, right?
Instead of saying F you in a song with Host, he comes out with
it's a middle finger in a velvet glove, brother. It's great.
It's so great. And the bass on that, another amazing bass line.
Oh my God, what a great walking bass line that is.
That was one of the bass lines I'd practiced to. Besides Motown stuff, that bass line was like one I'd be into.
Oh man, you could just be on the Paul McCartney hit parade as a bass player and you'd be just fine. Man, that was one.
And
of
it's
my
a happy
memories.
song. It's such a happy fu to him,
isn't it though?
I love it. I love it. And it speaks the time of that era, that of music. That like 70 was it 74? Was it 73?
Let me see what it says here. I'm sure that you're
no 76. No, it could be around 76. I'm wrong. It might be 70s. Is it 76?
I mean, it opens up with "Let Him In."
Let him in. Someone not gonna. Oh yeah, great.
Come on,
great. Sister Susie, Brother John. Oh man, great. What are the songs on that? Name the songs on that album.
Okay, it's we got "Let Him In," "The Note You Never Wrote," "She's My Baby," "Beware My Love."
Great song. That's a heavy song. "Beware My Love." I
know, really heavy, but it's a good song.
Yeah.
"Silly Love Song" side 2, because remember it was about the sides, right? What do you start the sides with, right? And what do you end the record with? So the first side started with "Let Him In." Second one was "Silly Love Songs." On the second side, it's "Cook of the House," "Time to Hide," "Must Do Something About It," "San Fairy Ann," and "Warm and Beautiful."
It's such a cool. And right here, Ashley, play the bass line and sing the song. The guy isn't human. I mean,
yeah, right. Yeah, it's true. it's true. It's like he's a human octopus. You know.
It really is.
But getting to meet him was actually one of the highlights of my life. That was really cool. Matt and I grew up with famous people around us, and we were really blessed that way. And to be honest with you, I'm really a George guy. It's like that acid test, the first date question, right? All right, which Beatle? And to me, not just because he was my neighbor, but as a guitar player and for his soul, I always loved George and his spirit.
Yeah.
Matthew was always, obviously, bass player, always a Paul guy. And don't get me wrong, I loved Paul too. But we got to meet him about 8 years ago now. And he was playing at the arena here in Nashville. And we rushed to the show because at the last minute, our manager at the time said, "I don't know how I did this, but I got through to his people. And Paul really wants to see you guys. He really wants to meet you." And it was really, really cool because, a year before that, no one knows this, but I was Cat Stevens' lead guitar player for a nanosecond.
Really?
And yeah.
Very cool.
And well, he was Yusuf at the time.
Yeah.
And stuff. And we were doing sessions remotely over tie lines, and he was over in England at the time, and he and I were singing backup on one of Cat's songs, and we couldn't see each other. It wasn't a Zoom thing or anything like that. And the producer said, all right, Paul. Well, I got Gunnar Nelson here, and we're going to be singing the song together. And he said, "What? The one with the hair?" And I said, "Yep, that's me." He said, "Ricky's boy." I said, "Yes, sir, it is. Nice to meet you, sir." And so we sang a little bit, and all of a sudden, that's the only time I got to meet him up to that point. We rushed down to the arena, and okay, so I want you to imagine we're backstage with the who's who of Nashville. But not everybody got to meet Paul. You had everybody in their kind of holding pen. And there was a very select group of people that he was cool saying hi to before the show. So I find myself in a hallway waiting for him to come out of his dressing room. It's me and Matthew, of course. And it is, I turn around and there's a nice lady. And she it was Reba McEntire. And she introduced herself. She said, "Hi, I'm Dolly Parton. Nice to meet you." So I got to meet her. And it was Simon Kirke from Bad Company, all of Rascal Flatts, and both Brooks and Dunn. So,
wow.
so we're all there waiting, and we're all kids at that time. Okay. All of us are nervous teenage fans waiting to meet our hero. The door opens. He pops his head out and he looks down the short line of people, and he nods at everybody with a little smile, and he sees Matthew at the back of the line. He walks right past everybody, walks right up to Matt, grabs him by the face and says, "My, don't you look like your daddy?" It was the greatest moment ever. And
that's so cool.
yeah, and so we actually we took a picture. To this day, people think I'm taking a picture with a cardboard standee because it doesn't look real. Yeah, because it's like we were taking a picture with Paul McCartney, and they think that we went someplace and held up a standee and took a picture. It was really him, but was great. But we actually left him with 2 gifts, which I'm pretty pleased with. Back in the 50s, when somebody had a gold record, they only had 2 copies of each gold record. That's it. Not like today. Today you can actually order however many copies you want for radio guys and whatever. Back then there were 2. One went to the record company, the other went to the artist. That's it. Paul actually recorded Lonesome Town, our dad's hit, on his Run Devil Run record. And we thought that was amazing. As a matter of fact, Paul was supposed to produce our father's last record.
Wow.
And that was a whole thing that was happening. They were working on it, and it was some stupid record company argument or something. And bottom line, it didn't happen. But Paul always said that our dad was a major influence because they never got the Ozzie and Harriet show in England. They just got the music. So they just thought that Rick was the famous guy in the family. They just got the singles. And he grew up listening to our dad and liking that. But one of the things that we brought down and we gave to Paul was our dad's only copy of the gold record, the original gold record for Lonesome Town.
Wow.
Made out to Rick Nelson. It should be in the Rock Hall. It's pretty awesome. And I was really hoping after all of these years that he cherished it as much as we did. It wasn't just like a normal gift. Yeah. And it feels so good because I had some friends go and see him play in Knoxville, Tennessee a week ago. And they hung out with this horn section and all that stuff. And those guys mentioned to my friends who mentioned me and Matthew, oh, their father's copy of Lonesome Town is right next to his desk in his office. It's like his prized possession.
Wow.
That made me feel pretty cool.
That's cool.
And there was also another thing that Matthew brought down. Our dad was working on a record in the studio when the plane crash took him. And one of the songs he had recorded was the first song that Paul and John had written together, which was One After 909. No one's ever heard it. The record was never released. They could never finish it. But our dad's vocal was finished on One After 909. And Matthew mentioned to Paul, look, I've got something special for you. You know, I know you guys were supposed to work together. It didn't work out. But our dad he recorded a copy of One After 909 the week before he died. And no one's heard it. And Paul was like, you didn't bring it with you. And he said, yeah, it's right here. And he had a reel-to-reel of it and gave it to him. And Paul clutched it to his chest like he was a 13-year-old rock fan and handed it to his assistant and said, please put this someplace special. And in that moment, what I was reminded of, it doesn't matter if you're Paul freaking McCartney. We love music so much. All of us love it so much that when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if you're Elvis, you're a Beatle, you're Ricky Nelson, whoever you are and how much you've achieved in music. We're all doing this because we love it. It's in our blood. It's like breathing to us. We were talking before we actually got on camera. Mm-hmm. You know, we've got some mutual friends that don't look at music the same way. You know, to them, it's really more business than music. You know, it's always been. And I always tell people, look, man, if you're getting into this for the money, there's plenty of stuff that you can do to make money easier than doing this. Plenty of stuff. Nowadays, chicks can sell pictures of their feet. I don't even want to go there. But you know, it's really not about the money, and it's really not about the adulation and the fame. It's really knowing that as a music creator, from my perspective, anyways, that there are few things in life that give me to this day as much joy as being woken up from a sound sleep at 4:00 in the morning with a song idea that pops in there that won't freaking go away. But I know that if I go to sleep thinking I'll remember it in the morning, it's not going to be there. So I kind of like, I'm all groggy. I roll out of bed. I grab my iPhone. You know, these days I hit the voice memo thing and I hum some garbage into it. And, before you know it, it turns into a composition that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And then, man, an additional blessing, people like get off on that and all that. It is, as a guy, it's as close as I'm ever going to get to having children. It's being the conduit for creation. And it's something that, man, for over 100 years, my ancestors have loved doing more than anything, knowing that it kept my grandpa and my grandma up at night when they had their big band. It kept my dad up at night when he was going through all these crossroads in his life and trying to figure out which path he wanted to take. And he always chose music. And it's the same thing for me and Matthew, no matter what. And this is a crazy world that we are living in right now.
Yeah.
But there is one joy that I will never let anybody take away from me. And that is my love for music. That is just something that has really, truly been a lifesaver for me, and something obviously I connect with my twin on, but also with these amazing fans that we meet and have been meeting every single show that we do for 4 decades, and still going and still doing it. It's just a real blessing. And here we are having this conversation. There are people tuning into your show from all over the world. And we all have this through line. And if you're getting that I'm juiced about it and I really freaking dig it, it's because I do. So I talked to our mutual friend and he goes, there's no money in music anymore. And my answer to that is, yeah, so what? There's never been. We are the only people in the world that'll spend thousands of dollars on a guitar and amp and hundreds of dollars in gasoline to drive 3 states to play a $50 gig. We're those guys.
We are those guys.
And we're still those guys.
And that's why it's so cool. I asked you to come on here and show your records because you could see the passion when you're talking about it. It's so cool. And how you and I are just, talking about, that song and this song and the memories. Michael Jackson, when at that time you didn't want, when you listen to like your Zeppelin and all that stuff, you wouldn't go out on the street, especially me in Brooklyn, listen to Michael Jackson. But I'd go in my house and go, God, it's so great, this stuff,
Oh,
and it,
fantastic. And Michael did the same thing for us guys that our dad did for other people back in the day. I never would have listened to R&B. I was a rocker, that's what I liked. Yeah. And then I heard, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. And I went, you gotta be kidding me,
Cool.
Yeah, so cool. Not my world. It's not the world that I come from. But as a musician,
but we got soaked into it. It was so good. You got drawn into it.
And that's the power of music. It really is this great uniter. It's this force. Look, I'm a guy that on my second record, Matt and I went over to Indonesia, and it was a record called Because They Can. And it was crazy because you go over to Indonesia and Singapore, those countries over there, they're Muslim countries. So even to go in there, gosh, it was a long time ago. It was like 1994, 95 when we went over. And yeah, like the week before, they just stopped cutting men's hair. If you came into the country and your hair was below your collar, they'd cut it at the airport.
Wow.
On my artwork, I was wearing a cross. I went there and I saw my record in the store and they'd airbrushed my cross out. It's their country, their rules,
That's crazy.
But that's just the way it was. But the most powerful moment for me, our record dropped the day in Indonesia that we were doing our concert. And we were the place to play in Indonesia was the Hard Rock Cafe. They had the stages and all that stuff. Before we could perform, we were interviewed by government censors to make sure we weren't going to say anything that was dangerous on stage. We had to be interviewed, which we were, and fortunately we passed the interview. 3 hours later, me and Matthew, 2 acoustic guitars, playing for about 3,000 people. About 4/5 of them were covered head to toe in shadors and burqas. You could only see just the eyes. That was it. But they were bopping to the music. And the ones who were not married, who were still single and their faces were uncovered, they had learned phonetically all of the words on that record that had come out hours before in the morning. And they had memorized all of those in a language that they didn't normally speak. And that's when I kind of went, that is the power of music. It transcended religion and language and culture and distance in one moment. And I thought, man, you know what? This really honestly is as close to magic as we can get here. It really is. And I think there's a reason why we got interviewed before we went up there and sang, because you know what? It does move people. It is dangerous.
It is
It's
yes.
been doing it for a long time. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
We were talking before, and I was telling you about records that I went through times, and it was my therapy. And, it's your Bible. And we would stare at these records and get lost. Whatever's troubling you, you would stare at these records and just get lost, from the artwork to the credits. You'd know every producer, every songwriter, because you just get soaked into it. And as we get older, we tend to forget stuff. But as you're showing me a McCartney record, I'm going, oh, isn't that song on that? Because I would read that, but I wouldn't read my history book. So there's my problems.
Oh, it's okay.
It's
okay.
You know that. What else you got over there?
I can trust my music. I can't trust my history books.
No, me either. Let's show what else, because I don't want to keep you all night over here.
Oh, no, not at all. Let me see what else I brought here. Hang on.
Because I want you to come back on the show. If I hog you for too long, you'll go, the guy bored me forever. So no, I love
not at all.
You.
Not at all. Not at all.
I love the Graham Parsons shirt.
This piece of crap here. How about that
That's a great one. Let's talk about this record for a second right here.
Great. Okay, this is Nelson's After the Rain, but this is actually kind of a cheat, because this is something that we put out a couple of years ago. This is the collector's grade vinyl. It's 180 gram, extra thick, and it was remastered, which is awesome, because we actually found the original tape, went back in the studio. Matthew remastered it with a great mastering engineer. And it's the first time since we actually recorded the record at Cherokee Recording Studios in Los Angeles that we actually heard the bass the right way, the power of the record the right way, since we heard it through the bigs in Cherokee. Technology wasn't great back then. Everyone was trying, and all that stuff, but it was during the transition from analog recording to digital recording. They hadn't worked out all the kinks on digital yet. And kind of one of the things that really suffered was, using highly technical music industry jargon, the balls just tended to go away. And when we remastered this, the balls came back, which was great. And, this record in general, this was, it was called After the Rain, obviously, for a reason. Yeah. It was about, being able to get through hard times and stuff. But, in hindsight, the thing about Nelson, especially the first record, we were signed to Geffen Records, but we were never a priority at Geffen Records. We were signed by a legendary A&R guy, John Kolodner. And, we focused on John because a lot of times when you're going for a record deal, in our case, we knew it was going to take a year or two to develop everything and get it to the point where we were ready to release. And most A&R guys last maybe a month or two at a record company. The first failure they have of something they put their stamp on, they get axed. Yeah. John had a long-term contract at Geffen, and David Geffen had a genius idea. He had 3 superstar A&R guys in the same building, in different corners of the building. They were all in competition with each other. They had very different tastes. John Kolodner was responsible. By the way, for your viewers and listeners, he was the guy in the Dude Looks Like a Lady video for Aerosmith who turns around in the wedding dress with the beard. That's a real guy, a real record company guy, genius guy, very difficult guy. We're talking psychological torture technique, tactics and stuff to get the best performances out of people. But respect, he's the guy that actually signed Foreigner to Atco. Mm-hmm. He signed AC/DC. He got Aerosmith in rehab and got him back together again. So he had just done the Pump record and all that stuff for Aerosmith. Whitesnake, the big album. He was the one that put all those beautiful guys together. He axed John Sykes, and he put Vivian Campbell in there and Adrian Vandenberg and made a super group. And so Matt and I were kind of competing for John's time at the time.
He was the rock star at the time. Even if you weren't behind the scenes and you were a fan, you knew who this guy was. He
right,
was
exactly.
A&R guy.
And actually being signed by John Kolodner was prestigious. That was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But because we were legacies, we were also a high profile signing with potential for a high profile disaster that maybe even John Kolodner's career couldn't recover from if it didn't work. He didn't ever view me and Matthew as a heavy metal act, because we weren't. He always looked at us as kind of like the hard rock Hollies. That's what he viewed the two of us as. He thought it was the two brothers with vocalizing off each other with the 2 acoustic guitars. And that was the nucleus of everything. We were going to build the sound around that. And that was really true. But we were really different in the sense that, like, Tom Zutaut, who was down the hall, had signed Guns N' Roses. Now, Guns N' Roses, great band, but pretty, it was like as opposite us as you could get. Those guys came from a blues background. Every song they've ever done has a foundation firmly entrenched in the blues, 1-4-5 blues. And it's cool. It's just very easy to make a song sound tough if you're playing blues-oriented rock. You know, ask Aerosmith or Cinderella or, you know, any of the Zeppelin. All of those bands come from the blues. Matt and I grew up in Southern California, you know, so we were heavy metal folkies, man. We had country rock and folk and all of that stuff. That and pop, that was our background. So when we come out, we found ourselves in the same kind of sonic situation that Boston did. When you think of Boston, what is Boston? Is it a metal band? Is it a rock band? Is it a pop band? And the answer is yes, right?
It's a universal band, I would call it.
I think, but it's challenging in the sense that in this business, everybody wanted to format everything. Okay, it makes it easier to market and sell. So you've got these stations now more than ever that are really formatted. So you've got your modern rock stations and you've got your classic rock stations and country stations. But bands like Eagles during the Joe Walsh era, how could you market that nowadays? How do you do it? It's so formatted now in radio that really they'd have to do what a lot of bands are doing nowadays. They're getting their social media presence happening and spreading the word that way. And that's encouraging, I think. But the same thing happened with Boston. Boston in its day, was it a pop band or was it a rock band? Which radio stations do we try to present it to? And Nelson was in the same thing, because the easy sell was with the Slaughters and the Wingers and the Warrants and the Poisons and all that stuff that Metal Edge magazine was selling back in the day.
Yeah.
And I loved all that music. I really did. But the second Matthew and we were ripping up the rock charts with Love and Affection, which was our first release. And it was in the top 10 on the rock charts. And then it crossed over to the Hot 100. And the second it crossed over to the Hot 100 to the pop charts, all of those rockers disavowed me and Matt. At that point, you know, I mean, we're competing with Prince and the Eurythmics and all that kind of stuff on that chart. So all those rock guys wouldn't tour with us because, you know, the combination of, okay, we're pop guys, at least we're having success on the pop charts, but also the Milli Vanilli scandal had happened the year before. And our image was just, they thought we were Milli Vanilla. Our image was so strong that they thought it wasn't real. So no one would let us go and open for them on their tours. And we tried asking everybody, all these bands that were going out, it's like, look, we're selling a ton of records and we're moving merchandise and we're really a great live band. And they were like, well, we don't think it's real. It'd be bad for our image. We think you're too lightweight or whatever it was. And there was really, we've always been kind of treated as guilty until proven innocent. So we had to pull a Grandpa Ozzie.
There was another
ego. It was an ego, but no one would take us out. So we had to go out on our own headlining tour. We started out headlining. It was either that or stay home.
Yeah.
So we went out, we did a theater tour and we put the tickets on sale at first after Love and Affection came out, didn't sell any tickets. No one thought it was real. They thought it was a studio thing. And it's like, okay, well, we need to make a video to show some of our live chops. So we did the After the Rain video and it has us performing with our band. And then that theater tour sold out in like 2 minutes. We had 45 dates. All of them sold out within the first 2 minutes, just from people seeing it and seeing us playing. It's amazing what propaganda can do. Totally. And then we did the More Than Ever video, which was the third one. We filmed that one. It was a live video and it was down at the Olympic Auditorium. We spent a fortune pulling up the mobile truck from the record plant and recording it. And here's the problem, man. We had Wayne Isham, Bon Jovi's director, directing the video. We had the mobile truck recording the audio. For your viewers out there, if you look up More Than Ever on Vivo or YouTube, please keep in mind that what you're listening to is not edited. That's us live.
Wow.
I mean, dead live. The problem is it was so note for note accurate with the album. We spent a freaking fortune and it didn't matter because it sounded like the album. We should have just like mimed to the album like everybody else did. It sounded exactly like it. Oh,
should I try to patch him in?
Yeah, try to patch Mark in. I want
Let's
to
see. Hold on. Let's see if we could do this.
Okay, let's see. That's awesome.
Let's see if you could hear him.
Put him on speaker.
Mark, are you there?
Yeah.
We're on the air. I'm on the air with Gunnar. Do you know Gunnar Nelson?
Yeah, I think I know that guy.
Yeah, well,
Hey, Marky.
he's saying hello to you right now, but I don't know if you could hear him, but you're on the air.
Yeah.
We're doing a live. We're talking vinyl. He's showing me his records, and it's good to hear from you.
There you go, man. Well, good to hear from you too. Give my love to Gunn, and you guys have fun. He's got the collection. My man has got all the toys and the good stuff.
Get Back to You.
Wait, what's that, Gunnar?
Ask Mark if you had fun writing the song To Get Back to You.
The song Get Back to You. Did you have fun writing it?
Of course I did. I was there with my brother. Gunn. And you know what he does? He calls me up and says, "Hey, man, you know the lead on that? Do you mind if Steve Lukather plays on it?" I said, "Are you kidding? Of course, have Steve playing on it. He's 50 times the guitar player I am. Absolutely.
Not
it's
true.
A great song.
No one knows how good of a guitar player Mark is. That's
Mark,
not fair for him to say.
That's
Don't
right.
let him. Yeah, Mark
That's right. Gunn is saying it right now that you are a great guitar player, and you really are.
Okay.
I know what you're doing over there in the shed. I know what you're doing back there at your home.
Yeah, I'm working it. That's what we do at the farm. We just play guitars and rock and roll on those chairs we got.
Yeah. What I'll do, I'll call you when I'm done with Gunnar, Mark. I'll call you afterwards.
All right.
But always good to hear you. And you want to say goodbye to Gunnar really quick?
Yeah. Hey, love you, brother.
Love you too, Mark. Talk to you soon.
He loves you too. Okay, Mark. Love you. All right, my man.
Take care, guys. All right, bye-bye.
Special guest, Mark Slaughter right there, everybody. Here, round of applause.
He's, honest to God, he is one of the best people I've ever met.
Great guy. And one of the best. Okay, now we got back to our records and back to our show. That was a fun little thing, because you and I really didn't know each other before this. I had your brother on, but now we're getting to know each other.
Mark's always been a connection. Jack Ponte's always been a connection and all that stuff. Matthew said to say hello to you, by the way.
Oh, tell him I said hello. Really good dude. He actually, when I first started interviewing people, I was having internet problem, which I'm probably having tonight. That's why I keep looking and I'm trying to fix it. But he helped me interview Jack Douglas.
Oh, cool.
And it was the first time your brother met him, and me and your brother were like this talking to Jack, because we're hearing all the Lennon rock and roll stories, and our mouths are like this. Your brother looked like a little kid. I'm like a little kid, and he didn't know me really. And I go, Matt, do me a favor. If my internet cuts out, take over the interview. But he was great. Good. So I might call you to help me with some interviews, because this week we got everybody watching. John Davidson, we have Monday and Patreon, and we have Tommy Chong coming on the show. That'll be in Patreon. So I have a couple of good ones. You
got Tommy Chong coming on your show.
Coming on Tuesday. If you ever want to co-host with me, let me know.
Alice Bowie was one of my first influences. Okay, would you please tell him that?
I will. You do me a favor, if you could send me a video, because by the way, everybody, Gunnar does Cameo, and links are in the description down below. You could click on it, and if you could give me a video of you doing that, so I could use it for the footage, would you do that for me?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. He's one of my heroes, man. What a strong person he is.
That'd be cool. I'll give your people my number, just so you have it. I don't know if you have it, and then you'll send it to me. That'd be cool to have you as a special guest.
Well, I hope we get to do more of this stuff. I really do, because this is fun.
This is cool too. This is cool. We bonded now on this, but yeah, Tuesday is Tommy. That's going to be a fun one. So I would love to get that video.
I'm so jealous. I'll get it to you today.
All right.
You got it.
And everybody else, if you're watching, links for everything for Gunnar and his brother Matthew, they're all down there. The Cameo, their website. Please support this guy. He's great. Music is great. He's a great guy. Okay, let's go back. These records. What were we talking about? I got distracted now. I got all crazy. Where were we at?
Well, we talked about my record a little bit. There's one record I want to bring up real quick, if I can. And it's this one. This is when MTV was young.
Yeah.
And I was practicing with my band, The Strange Agents, in my garage. And this was something that kind of changed the game for me, not just as a writer and stuff, but as a producer, which was...
Oh, my God. Yes.
Pyromania. When I first heard Photograph for the first time, that was when I was introduced. Well, actually, I didn't know it wasn't my first introduction to Mutt Lange. It was actually like the second time I heard Mutt, because I was a big Huey Lewis fan.
That's right. I forgot he did that.
Yeah, he did Do You Believe in Love?
Yes.
And it was an amazing, amazing song. And that was the first time I actually was exposed to Mutt Lange, he's got to be an alien or something, because there are great producers and then there's Mutt Lange, So, I mean, again, for the viewers out there that don't know, this is a guy that has produced some of your favorite records, whether or not you know it. Everything Def Leppard that's been awesome has been Mutt Lange. He produced The Corrs, of course. He did AC/DC's Back in Black album.
Yes.
He did Shania Twain, literally and figuratively. But
they were married.
I had to go Jersey on you.
Wait, where is it? I have something.
Come on, I want it.
No. Oh, right here.
There you go. That's perfect.
Okay.
But the guy's absolutely brilliant. So many great songs, and that was also something I bonded with Jack Ponte on, was talking about Mutt and how capable he is. And the fact is, this is the first time I ever experienced a producer who basically could play every instrument better than every member of the band, sing better than the lead singer, sing all the background vocals. He was one of these guys. He's a composer, so he hears everything done in his head before he even goes near the studio. And it doesn't matter if it's inhuman to sing it. You're going to sing it the way he wants you to sing it.
Yeah. And
then it's up to you to keep your voice for the rest of your career when you're having to reproduce that on stage every night. But it's, what's wonderful to me is like my first experience with Def Leppard was, as everybody else, was as a fan. And then throughout the years, it's kind of one of those things when you're in the trenches and you've been doing this as long as I've been doing this, you really do tend to meet everybody. Most of the time, people have been really nice to me and Matthew, which is really cool. There've been some dicks, but it's just like life. It just is what it is. But the guys in Def Leppard have always been so cool and so respectful and so wonderful. Back in the day, Matthew and I were giving Phil Collin rides down to the Jackson Guitar Factory in San Dimas in like 1986 or 7.
Oh, wow.
And stuff, which was cool. And we were just friends throughout the year. Vivian Campbell played on some of our demos.
Wow.
Back before we got signed to that. And the last time I saw the guys, Joe, my daughter, Asia, is a giant Joe Elliott fan. Okay. She's 15 now. At the time when he was in town, it was pre-COVID. So I think she was just 12. And one of my favorite videos of my daughter was my wife captured her in the minivan when she had headphones on, and she was a baby. She was like 2 years old and singing Photograph at the top of her lungs, not knowing that everybody could hear her. But she secretly filmed Asia as a baby singing that song. And I sent that to Phil to show to Joe. And it was the greatest thing. We made this moment happen where they were coming into town. I arranged to go backstage and stuff. And the first thing Joe did was he got down on a knee and he looked at her and he said, "Are you the little girl that was singing Photograph?" And she just turned bright red and started crying. And it was just this great moment. He hugged her and it was just this wonderful moment. And then Joe, it was the sweetest thing because he said, I got to thank you for something. And I said, "Thank me for what? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you did a vocal instructional video with your coach, Roger Love, in like 1990 back in the day. But when I lost my voice, I had to learn how to sing again. And it was your videotape, Get Out of the Shower with Roger Love, that I worked out to every day. And I retrained my voice and I got my voice back. So I wanted to thank you." And that was one of those moments where I'm like, dude, I'm a 12-year-old rock fan. Instantly, it's like that moment in, oh God, what was that great? Anyways, it'll come to me. Ratatouille, where Anton Ego, and it goes right back. And I'm a 12-year-old kid hearing Photograph for the first time. And the guy who sang that amazing song is saying that I had a little impact on his life. It's the greatest part about this business is that I don't care how old I get. I don't know. I don't care how many gigs I've done, how many records I've sold, how many fans I've been blessed with to meet. Those are the moments that make it worthwhile, is because he doesn't know that record was the record that I played when my mom and dad were using me and my brother as pawns in their divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put on my headphones and I would escape into that world. You know, that's what that did. So that's why I'm so enthusiastic about music to this day. Cause you know, honestly, I would have wound up a Hollywood statistic had it not been for a passion for music and a common language I could speak with my twin and be as enthusiastic about. And, you know, look, I freaking love it. This new project that we're working on right now, I'm making.
Tell us about that. Tell the audience.
It's called Firstborn Sons.
That's right. We'd be getting questions for it in here. I'm sorry I didn't get the, you know, so much in the chat. I'm talking to you.
You know what? I'll have to come back and we'll talk about it. It's not been released yet, but I'm going to give you a couple of the songs and you can share it with your viewers if you want to.
I would love to.
But it's unapologetic, great American country rock. It's guitar oriented. I want you to imagine the Eagles during the Walsh era meets Lynyrd Skynyrd. That's what we're doing. And man, I'm having just an absolute blast doing it because I find myself in the same place my dad was when the industry considered him completely over in yesterday's news. Yeah. I'm poised now to have my moment where I can actually stick up my middle finger in a velvet glove and say, you know, first off, for the record, spandex is still a privilege and not a right. So keep that in mind. Okay. I'm so proud of what we did back in the day with Nelson. Yeah. But I still write a song at least every single day. And the songs are fortunately getting better and better. And I'm more pumped about making music than I ever have been before. And I think that that's really going to translate because the quality of the songs and the music better than anything I've done before. And it's so free because I'm not trying to aim it anywhere. I'm not trying to chase any kind of trend or anything like that. I'm just trying to make great American music. That's what I'm trying to do and make the kind of music that I enjoy myself. And as a fan, I would want to make a part of my life. So that's what I'm doing. And I know it's like describing music to anybody is kind of like eating a gourmet meal and trying to describe to them what it tasted like. You have to experience it yourself. So I know my words are not ringing home, but I promise you I'm pretty hard on myself, especially when I'm writing and recording. But there isn't anything I wouldn't change with these songs so far. And that's saying a lot because I'm never usually satisfied with anything I do.
So you have your, as we were talking about silly love songs, do you have a song like that, an FU but hidden, like a happy FU to somebody out there?
I actually do. I've got a song called I Love You. It's that simple. It's called I Love You. And it's my silly love songs.
That's cool.
And it's pretty cool. It's been used it's not released yet. It's been a backing track during our live show. And there's only a 30-second snippet of it. And that is the one song that all the girls say, how can I get that song? I want that song. They only hear 30 seconds of it. So I think we're headed in the right direction. But yes, that's my silly love songs. It's called I Love You.
We got to hear it. I mean, you know what? I'm going to have you come back more than once. I mean, there's so many great stories to talk to you about.
Don't threaten me with a good time because I'll take you up on it, man.
I love it. And I watch, you know, everybody, you know, you could check out our playlist and you could see other interviews we did with Gunnar and my buddy, Ryan Roxy. You were on his show and I'm giving Roxy, if you're watching out there.
I love Ryan.
Yeah. You guys out there. He used to work at Madame Wong's and
oh yeah,
it used to be a mortuary.
Dude, he mixed sound for us. You should talk to him about that. He mixed sound for us when we were kids.
Yeah, and Gilby was a sound guy there too. You know that?
I did not know. I didn't work with Gilby, but I worked with Roxy, and those were the days, man. You know, everybody talks about it. Again, that whole rock and roll Sunset Strip thing. There was a whole other scene going on.
There was a guy, Alan, that worked there. I came out here right when it closed down, and Madam Wong's, Roxy and I moved out from New York together. We moved here. I was working at Circus Magazine. He was in Electric Angels, and I just found at my mom's place, my name's in Circus Magazine. I was called staff. I was getting tickets, and you and your brother are in there. Your tour dates. I have 2 copies of the Circus Magazine, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you one. It's the old original, and I had 2 of them, and I'll send you one for you, and I got one for me because you can't get it anymore.
Please do. Well, here's some trivia on Madame Wong's West. I love this. I told this to Roxy, but we were you know, I told you there's a downstairs room and an upstairs room. They had the greatest freight elevator in the world. It's a big giant elevator. So you do your load in from the parking lot. You usually wound up, Esther Wong usually made the artists pay for their own parking. So you usually went in the red every gig you played there. And I was riding up in the elevator with her from the parking lot to the 2nd floor. And I made a comment on how big and spacious the elevator was. And Esther said, "Oh yeah, this is where they used to move the bodies." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Oh, this used to be a funeral home. Madam Wong's West was a funeral home before it was a venue. And that was the elevator that they used to take the bodies to the embalming room in."
Oh,
and that's what all the musicians were moving their gear in, you know?
That's funny. Liz is asking, can't wait. Is the merch coming too? She wants to know.
We're working on it right now.
Okay.
And I'm so sorry. And I appreciate everyone's patience. Man, I wish I had a couple of the t-shirts around to show you. Every single one of them is guaranteed to get us sued. I mean, I've got the greatest logo for Firstborn Sons that are the greatest t-shirt. It's a black t-shirt with gold foil, the Trans Am logo on it says Firstborn Sons.
Oh, that's cool.
It looks like the Bandit car. It's very cool.
Yeah.
We call it our cease and desist line. It's going to be fun.
That's it for young kids smoking the Bandit Burt Reynolds. That's our generation. It's great. I love all that stuff. But you know what? That's a good tribute, man.
Yeah, man.
You know, let's see what else you got over there because I know you're running and all that stuff. This is great. Show some more.
I think I've gone through all the.
Did you go?
I had a little mini stack today. Hang on a second here.
Did we end it?
Yeah. That's it. We've gone through them all.
We've gone through them all. Okay.
Well, at least for today. I got a whole other stack downstairs.
You have a whole other
snippet.
This was a lot of fun. Everybody, you know what? This was a lot of fun. And we talked about a lot of good stuff. And you got to know Gunnar through his records and the stories. It's the best way to get for an interview. Pull out the records and we geek out together. You know,
yeah, like I said, it's like a first date question, you know?
It really is. Yeah. But everybody in the chat, I want to thank you guys for coming on there. And thank you very much. And look, great albums, Gunnar. So she likes you. And hey, everybody, Laurel getting hearts over here. So put after the show, everybody put your comments down below. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if it's your first time here. And we'll be seeing more of Gunnar coming back over here for sure.
Oh, man, I've had so much fun, man. Seriously, and I'm going to share that new music with you. And I'll let you know about the merch and shameless plug. Like you mentioned, I'm on Cameo. You know, I'm shameless there. So come and find me.
Hey, I'm all about it, man, because I'm going to get a cameo from him because I wanted to share it with Tommy over there. And that'll be a fun one. Oh, you know what else I got coming on? Show everybody watching. Kenny Jones of the Faces and with the Who. So
look, I'm a drummer. I told you, man. I'm a drummer. I love Kenny Jones.
You know, trust me. You know how I'm getting these people? I make a sizzle reel with everybody on it, and you're on it too. So there it is. That's how I get the people, and that's incredible. John Davidson. We grew up with him.
Nice. You know, I'm going to steal your hack. I'm going to do the same thing.
You know, we'll do it together. You know, you'll come in there. Everybody, you have a great night here. I'll let you go back to your life now. I took all your time, but man,
don't let me go too far. Too far. Everybody have a great weekend. And thank you for having me on your show. It's always a blast.
Dude.
And like I said, I got a lot more music to talk about if you're game, I am. Okay.
I'm totally into it. And hey, man, happy belated Father's Day to you. So,
oh, bless you, man. Thank you so much. It's my greatest job.
You know, but love having you. I'll let you out of here. Everybody, thank you for being here tonight. We're going to roll the credits and I'll give you a proper goodbye. If it's your first time here, subscribe. If it's your last time here, share it to somebody you can't stand.
Blame it on me.
Blame it on him.
Your last time here, blame it on Matthew.
Everybody, we're out of here, kids. We'll see you later. Mwah. Bam. All right. And the broad